Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down right next to me. No touching. I don't do the touching. And welcome to Tuesday's edition of the DCEU Daily. And Chris Pine talks Wonder Woman 1984 and differences from the last film. You know how much I'm looking forward to this film. This is my go-to movie for DCEU fandom. And you know why? Because I freaking well loved the first film. For me, maybe not for you, but for me, this is a near perfect film. One of my favourite films, one of my favourite CBMs of all time. Why? Because it was beautiful, it was emotional. The film was just full of so much love and acceptance, beautiful action, beautiful character development. And one of the things that always makes me so emotional is Wonder Woman sitting there, talking to these men that she's teaming up with and listening to their tragic stories and being there for them. Them being there for each other, men and women, sitting there, uniting, instead of hating each other. And it really is a parallel to what happened with Captain Marvel and such negativity and such hate. With Gal and Patty Jenkins talking about Wonder Woman being for everyone. And this is why I love that film. You know, I was talking last week about Margot Robbie talking about not so male gazy for Birds of Prey, and I was very disappointed about that. But you don't get this type of talk from Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot, and that's why I love it. So let's read the article. It's on BatmanNews.com, a great site most of the time. Chris Pine sat down with Robin Wright, I'm assuming it's not the Robin Wright from the original Wonder Woman, for a new instalment of Variety's Actors on Actors series. While the two of them dived into each other's careers. Oh, it was from her. How awesome. Can't I see this? I love Robin Wright. I've actually loved Robin since Santa Barbara. Don't you remember her in Santa Barbara? That silly soap. She was amazing and I knew she'd be successful. So they dived into each other's careers in depth. I wonder if they spoke about Santa Barbara in depth. Wonder Woman 1984 came up despite not yet being released. Wright asked Pine towards the end of their session, what is different with Wonder Woman 1984? And Pine says quite a bit. No, he doesn't tell us how Steve Trevor is involved this time. It appears we won't know that until we're sitting in the theatres. I just can't wait. I want to see this film now. What I think defines this series and perhaps the characters and certainly Patty's interest is redefining the notion of a hero's journey as we know it, whereby this is a woman, a superhero, defined by her capacity to love, to embrace, not to hate. Right. Where are we? Right. I'll say no more, but I hope audiences are moved in unexpected ways. Because they're expecting something. I'll probably get a phone call from Warner Brothers for even saying this, yada yada, blah blah blah. I think you get my point. What I found this time, the tables had turned on me as a man in terms of how I interacted and played on screen. I loved my lady. I loved as the character, my woman, my partner. She's my partner. So that came to define this man. What a wonderful thing as a character to be in love as a man on screen in a big film. Couldn't agree more. It was interesting. My ego comes out, and I told Patty all the time, I want the big fucking fight. Let me climb something. I want to destroy. And she's like, no, not about you. And I'm like, God damn it, she said. Well, damn it, she said, not about you. More times making this film. I could look good in thigh-high boots and a short skirt. I mean, come on. He's so funny. We're still super curious as to not only how Steve Trevor is back, but why he appears to have not aged at all. From the sounds of this interview, he's the same Steve. Some theories said he wasn't, and that makes us just that more confused. We can't wait to find out all the secrets of this movie. Yeah, you and me both. Wonder Woman 1984 will hit theatres June the 5th, 2020. Wow. A very short interview, but I thought I'd read it out to you because any tidbit from Wonder Woman 84, I'm sure, is appreciated by me and my fellow DCEU fandom. And this film, I have no doubts. I have no, is it going to be good? Are they going to... Look, it could be so different from the first film. That's okay. It should look, a sequel should be different, but we don't know how Steve Trevor comes back. I've got my theories. Why is he the same? Why hasn't he aged? That's a great point by BatmanNews.com. Why hasn't he aged? Is he a clone? Has he been brought back to life by Ra's al Ghul's pit? It would seem unlikely. There's something going on here, or is he from another Earth? Is the multi-Earth going to be used on this? Is this another version of Wonder Woman? Of course, I've discussed all of this before, and we don't know. What's great, because they're not really, I hate it when creators say, no, it's not that, no, it's not that. Just let us have some fun. Let us have a guess. And so it's very, very interesting how this film's going to turn out. And of course, a lot of us do think, including me, this is a DCEU course correction, which will affect the Batman. I think it will affect many, many films. And I think it's an exciting thing, and it's a good thing. So I even think we may even get some DCEU cameos from other heroes, which would be awesome. Imagine Aquaman turning up. Imagine Superman turning up. You know, imagine Batgirl turning up, which is pretty impossible for the 80s. But as seeing there wasn't a Superman in 1984, but maybe on this Earth there is a Superman. There is a Batgirl. Who knows? So very, very, very excited about that. And, you know, I just can't wait to see this film. You know, because my love for Wonder Woman, the whole film. People say the villains are rubbish. The villains weren't rubbish. The villains just weren't these big, you know, like, you know, the German guy and, you know, Dr. Poison. They weren't big, you know, threats, but they were still very intriguing characters, and I enjoyed them. And the whole thing with the manipulation of man and all that was just a beautiful thing. People say, oh, I don't like the third act because it just resulted to a CGI battle. So what? CGI, used sparingly, is awesome. And that fight is beautiful. It's emotional. She sees the man she loves, the first man she's ever met, die, sacrifice himself. And she's at that moment where she could turn. She could turn and be something terrible to the world. But she chooses love. And that's a beautiful thing. So how that's a bad thing for the final act, I don't know. Because there's people and critics talking about films who don't have a clue about storytelling. But us, the fans, know. It was a freaking amazing film. I think we're very lucky in the DCEU because I think apart from Batman Begins, I think Man of Steel, Wonder Woman and Aquaman are three of the best, if not the best, origin CBM movies ever made. Ever made. For me, they are brilliant. They are almost perfect. You don't have to agree with that because Big Mouth isn't a channel where I say something and you must get on your knees and agree with me. That's why there's a comment section. That's why you shouldn't unsubscribe just because I say something you don't like. Also, I've noticed that Warner Media have announced a June TV show for their Warner Media streaming service. That's unrelated to the DCEU, but that it means they're beginning to make announcements about the Warner Media streaming service. Keep your ears and your eyes open because you never know. There could be an announcement on the Snyder Cut. And if there is, Big Mouth will be the first place where you'll hear all about it.